All right, let's take a look at a mass spectra. And so in this case, we have pentane, right? So 5 carbons long. If you look up the molar mass of this, you're going to get approximately 72 grams per mole. We always round to the ones place. These instruments generally aren't sensitive enough to go beyond the ones place unless you are using a higher resolution mass spec. And so you can see right here on the y-axis, we've got relative intensity, and on the x-axis, we've got the charged or the mass to charge ratio, which is essentially just the mass. And so this somewhat big peak furthest to the right, this is your molecular ion peak. Right, it gets M for molecular, the positive because it's a cation, and then the dot meaning that it is a radical. And so you can see this is right at 72. So this is telling us that a molecule weighs 72 grams per mole or 72 AMU, which is exactly what we would expect from pentane. And so that's the molecular ion peak. Over here, this biggest peak is what's known as the base peak. Right, so that's just the biggest peak. And so you can tell that your molecular ion peak is not always your biggest peak. Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. In this case, this one's reading at 43 grams per mole. And so we can think about what occurs here. So if we have our molecule of pentane, right, we're going to have a high energy electron come in over here. It's going to shoot out an electron as well. And then we're going to cleave this bond right here, right? And so if you think about cleaving this bond, what you'd be left with is an ethyl cation here, and then a propyl cation here. If you think about what this is H3C CH2, and this weighs 29 grams per mole. And then this other propyl radical or propyl cation is a CH3 CH2 CH2. And this weighs 43 grams per mole, right? And so you can see that this base peak is actually this propyl cation. We won't learn too much about the base peak. Really, the most important peak here is this molecular ion peak. So you need to be able to identify it. It's not always the biggest peak, but it's the somewhat goodly sized one all the way to the right.